What's happening, guys? Well, love it or hate it, the Hurricane Twin Turbo Inline 6 family of engines is taking the place of the 5.7 liter naturally aspirated Hemi V8 in the Ram 1500s. And say what you will about losing the V8, it's the sound of it, it's the simplicity. Guys, the twin turbo offering is a superior power plant because it will offer up a performance envelope that encompasses a much wider array of atmospheric and actual altitude conditions. You see, a naturally aspirated engine, or even an engine with a supercharger that's driven off of the crankshaft, suffers one Achilles heel, and that is for every 1,000 feet of elevation that it goes up, or for every 1,000 feet of elevation up that the conditions will offer to it in terms of density altitude, you lose 3%. Where a turbocharged engine is unaffected by those conditions because its compressor is turned by the exhaust. And because of that, it will continue to make pressure in that intake manifold until it literally runs out of either atmosphere to draw from, or the turbocharger is just at that altitude simply too small to fill the intake manifold at all. But then at that point, it just turns into, well, what is in essence a supercharged engine. And as it goes up in altitude from the point where it can't make any more boost, then it just loses 3% per 1,000, just like the other engines do, except you had all of your power available up to that point. So to talk on that point, let me illustrate it from a little bit different point of view and look at it from the aviation industry's point of view. So a Lycoming 510 engine, it's a small private aircraft engine. It's rated at 380 horsepower at sea level, but it also is rated at 380 horsepower at 10,000 feet, above which it will begin to start losing power at about that rate of about 3% per 1,000 feet as you climb in elevation. And this has been a known thing in the aviation world since, well, aviation, right? So that's why the turbocharger is kind of the cheat code. Not only will it make advertised power at sea level, but every other altitude in between, up until the point where you simply cannot fill that turbocharger any longer. And that's a big deal because now it allows you a power plant that will make, well, advertised power at any altitude that you're going to find yourself at, and it will allow it to make boost pressure and offer up that same rated power regardless of temperature, atmospheric conditions. And provided that you've got the after-cooling capacity to keep that intake charge cool and keep it away from a knock threshold, you've in essence got sea level power all the time. And that's where it really does become a game changer. And keep in mind that that 3-liter engine is looking more and more like a global platform, and you'll get the idea that, well, the Hemi was just not marketable anymore. It doesn't work in all conditions. It doesn't work under all altitudes. And, well, to be honest, other markets are simply not interested in it. So when you look at it from that point of view, what other engine choice would there have been? Now, you can make the argument that, well, maybe it would have been better if the Hurricane, instead of being a 3-liter, could have been a 3.5-liter, or maybe even a 4-liter, and not rely on 24 pounds of boost for the standard output variant and 29 pounds of boost for the high output. But that's not how it worked out. Although a larger displacement would require less boost, presumably to make the same power, it doesn't necessarily make it more marketable because different countries and different laws that determine taxation and things like that for engine displacement have a breakover point above 3 liters. So again, if you're making a global platform engine, you're a little bit hem-tied when it comes to your displacement. So if you want power, big power, out of a small displacement, the answer to that is boost, and lots of it. And that's what that Hurricane 6 has. Again, it has obnoxiously high boost numbers, but that's what it takes to make the kind of power that they're making now. Now, it may be a bit unrealistic to ask that engine to make that kind of power on regular old gasoline. I would personally only run premium through that if it were mine, if only to get what the owner's manual says is the optimum performance and fuel economy. Although it will at least get around on 87 octane, I wouldn't tow with it. I wouldn't try to make any quarter mile or 0 to 60 hits with it over and over again, but at least it'll run on the cheaper gas, which is the standard output will, not the high output. Don't put regular gas in that thing. Impressive engine, by the way. If you've never driven one, it'll blow your mind the kind of power that thing makes. But it blows my mind, though, that these engines, or at least the standard output, can run on 87 octane at all, considering the amount of boost pressure that it's running. I know also, too, there could be some guys worried about longevity, or they might say, well, why don't you just put a turbocharger on the 5.7 liter? Well, it doesn't quite work like that. The Hurricane 6 is designed as an engine that is boosted in much the same way that some diesel engines, or most all diesel engines that are coming from the factory with a turbocharger, they're designed around boost. Well, gasoline engines haven't been like that in a long time, and if you were to just put a turbocharger on a 5.7 liter Hemi, it may not hold up from a warrantability standpoint, even at low boost. Plus, it adds another layer of complexity, and then you lose all the benefits of it being globally marketable. So we're back to the 3 liter. So guys, give that 3 liter a shot. I would suggest that you go put some 93 octane in it before you do any draggy hits like I did. Don't come away from the whole experience disappointed, but do yourself a favor, go sample one. When they come on the boil, they're pretty impressive, and it may just make you think twice about that V8. Just don't mind the way that it sounds. That can always be tuned out. And with that, guys, that's a wrap. See you on the next one.